Society often holds the prejudice that a woman living alone is a symbol of loneliness, of emptiness, that stems from the absence of a man's presence. In that judgmental gaze, a woman's independence is seen as a flaw, an abnormality that needs correction. But is that solitude truly a manifestation of deficiency, or is it a bold journey toward inner completeness? Carl Jung, the renowned analytical psychologist, once pointed out that loneliness does not arise from having no one by your side, but from being unable to connect with what is truly important to yourself. In the silence of living alone, a woman finds the space to confront herself, to touch the deeper layers of her soul that the chaos of everyday life often neglects. The absence of a man does not equate to the absence of love or value. Rather, it is an opportunity for her to explore and perfect her independent self. Therefore, a woman living alone is neither rebelling against society nor lacking in affection. It is a strong and deliberate choice, a courageous act to seek completeness from within, to break free from social molds, and to reclaim the truest value of her being. Number 1. Breaking social prejudices about women living alone. For centuries, society has always associated the image of a woman with specific roles, being a wife, a mother, and a caregiver for the family. These social norms are so deeply ingrained in the subconscious that anyone who lives differently is judged and criticized. A woman living alone is often perceived as unfortunate, lonely, or even as a failure in the eyes of society. The image of the single woman is inevitably linked to the stereotype of emotional deprivation, of missing out on family happiness, as if the absence of a man is a flaw that needs fixing. These prejudices stem from traditional thinking that a woman's value primarily lies in serving her family, becoming the spiritual pillar in the roles of wife and mother. Therefore, when a woman chooses to live alone, she is immediately labeled as lonely or incomplete. People assume that she is rebelling against society, trying to prove something through personal rebellion. But the reality is entirely different. Carl Gustav Jung, with his profound studies in analytical psychology, once emphasized, "I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become." This is a truth that society often fails to acknowledge when discussing women who live alone. This choice is not the result of emotional deprivation or an inability to maintain a relationship. It is a conscious, intentional act to focus on personal growth, to seek and reach deeper inner values. In a modern world where women are increasingly self-reliant in terms of economy, education, and social status, living alone has become a symbol of freedom and strength. They no longer need to rely on men to affirm their worth. A study by the Institute for Family Studies in the United States indicates that the number of women choosing to live independently is rapidly increasing. This not only reflects economic changes, but also a psychological awakening, as women realize that independence is not a sign of loneliness, but a manifestation of inner strength. While society continues to hold on to the stereotype that single women are pitiable, a significant number of women have boldly affirmed that living alone is an act of freedom, a personal declaration. One exemplary case is the story of the famous writer Virginia Woolf, who once stated in her essay, A Room of One's Own, that a woman must have money and a room of her own if she is to write fiction. This is not only a material need, but also an affirmation that personal freedom and private space are essential conditions for creativity and spiritual growth. So why, when a modern woman chooses to live alone, is she labeled as lonely or lacking? This is the rigidity of outdated prejudices that no longer fit the context of today's society. In reality, Many successful women in the arts, sciences, and business have chosen to live independently, not because they lack options, but because they realize that living alone brings them the mental freedom to explore their inner potential. Carl Jung once addressed another aspect of solitude in the process of individuation when he said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Living alone is not a rejection of traditional values, but a quest for a deeper self. In a world where gender roles sometimes place too many expectations on the individual, many people assume that living alone is a sign of unhappiness. Yet many women have found peace and strength in their personal space. For them, the freedom to make every decision without depending on anyone else is invaluable. They can live as they wish, go wherever they desire, without being pressured by others. This is not selfishness or a rejection of social relationships, but rather a choice to connect with oneself before connecting with others. It is unfortunate that many still fail to understand this. They hastily conclude that women who live alone are doing so because they cannot find love or are not good enough to sustain a relationship. They fail to see that these women have overcome the fear of loneliness, confronted their inner darkness, and emerged stronger than ever. Another thought-provoking story is that of the artist Frida Kahlo, who once said, "I paint myself because I am so often alone, and because I am the subject I know best." In that solitude, Frida found the truth about herself, and her artworks became a powerful testimony to her journey of self-discovery. In general, social prejudice against women living alone reflects conservative thoughts that fail to recognize the transformation of the modern world. Living alone is not about giving up love or opposing men, but about being true to oneself, respecting personal values, and enjoying independence. It is a challenging yet proud journey, where a woman no longer seeks validation from the outside, but asserts her worth. A woman who lives alone is not a lonely or failed person, but a courageous individual who steps out of outdated molds, living as the most authentic version of herself. It is not just a choice, but a journey towards fulfillment, where she no longer needs to seek love from the outside, but becomes an endless source of love herself. Number 2. The journey of self-discovery and psychological growth. As society gradually changes its prejudices and accepts that a woman living alone is not a sign of lack or failure, but a choice of freedom, her journey shifts to a new phase. It is no longer a battle to break down barriers of prejudice, but a journey of self-discovery, facing the deep layers of the mind. Carl Gustav Jung, with his profound understanding of analytical psychology, once stated, "Your visions will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." For a woman living alone, solitary moments are not meaningless voids, but doors that open to self-confrontation, where she begins the process of individuation, a journey that Jung believed would lead a person to become the most complete and authentic version of themselves. In the silence of solitude, a woman has the opportunity to explore her unconscious, to confront the shadow, the hidden parts buried deep within her mind. Carl Jung defined the shadow as the repressed, denied, or forgotten aspects of the conscious ego. It could be fears, insecurities, or even desires suppressed by social norms. When living alone, not influenced by the expectations or pressures of others, she has the space to acknowledge and face these hidden aspects. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious, Jung once said. Living alone is the opportunity for a woman to illuminate these dark corners, not to run away from them, but to learn acceptance and understanding. Not only does she confront the darkness, but she also has the chance to connect with her animus, the masculine energy within, which Jung described as an important archetype in the female psyche. According to Jung, the animus represents assertiveness, rationality, strength, and self-determination. In a society where women are often expected to be gentle and soft, the connection with the animus is sometimes forgotten or even suppressed. But when living alone, without relying on any man for protection or support, a woman awakens this inner strength. The woman who develops her animus frees herself from the projections of masculine qualities onto men. Living alone, she learns to become confident, decisive, and strong, qualities that society once believed belonged only to men. We can see the image of connection with the animus in many modern women. Successful female entrepreneurs, strong female leaders, or independent artists worldwide are evidence of this internal awakening. They no longer need to depend on anyone else to feel secure or acknowledged. They build their careers on their own, protect themselves, and most importantly, find the meaning of life on their own. Sheryl Sandberg, Chief Operating Officer of Facebook, once said, "We need women at all levels, including the top, to change the dynamic, reshape the conversation, to make sure women's voices are heard and heeded, not overlooked and ignored." Women like Sandberg have activated their animus, stepped up, and asserted their positions with decisiveness and inner strength. The development of the animus is not limited to career or financial success, but also includes psychological and spiritual growth. When no longer dependent on the protection of others, a woman learns to face challenges on her own, make decisions independently, and heal her wounds. This is the clearest manifestation of psychological maturity. In moments of solitude, she confronts her fears, insecurities, and emotional voids that may have been masked by the presence of others. Carl Jung once wrote, "To confront a person with his own shadow is to show him his light." Solitude is the opportunity for a woman to face her vulnerabilities and find the powerful light within. When the journey of facing the shadow and connecting with the animus begins, a woman gradually discovers the deep aspects of her soul that she may have never realized before. This is not merely Jung's abstract theory, but a reality proven by many real-life stories. Imagine a 32-year-old woman working in interior design. After ending a long-term relationship, she decides to live alone. Before that, she always relied on her partner to make big decisions in life, from choosing an apartment to monthly budgeting. While in the relationship, she rarely voiced strong opinions, believing that letting her partner lead would make everything smoother. However, when she began her independent life, she faced a completely different reality. With no one to rely on, every decision, big or small, had to be made by herself. Initially, she felt unsteady and fearful, worried that she was not capable enough to face life's challenges. But in those moments, her animus, the latent masculine strength within her, began to awaken. She learned to manage her finances, understand legal procedures to rent a house, and repair broken things that she once thought were a man's job. Each decision she made on her own became a small step in the process of individuation, helping her become stronger and more decisive. She no longer called anyone for advice on how to fix a leaking faucet or hang a painting on the wall. Instead, she researched online, bought tools, and did everything herself. She once shared with friends, "The first time I drilled the wall to hang a shelf, I spent hours measuring, drilled the wrong holes, and had to start over. But when everything was done, I felt prouder than ever before." It wasn't the pride of having a shelf hung correctly, but the confidence of knowing she could do everything on her own without relying on anyone else. She also began to explore personal passions she had once ignored. She signed up for painting classes every weekend, a hobby her ex once called a waste of time and impractical. No longer influenced by external opinions, she gradually connected more deeply with her inner self. She realized she was stronger than she had ever thought, more resilient under pressure, and most importantly, able to listen to her inner voice. The journey of facing the shadow and connecting with the animus is the path toward individuation, the concept Carl Jung describes as the journey back to one's most authentic self. For a woman living alone, this journey may be challenging but also incredibly beautiful. Free from social impositions, she learns to listen to herself, make her own decisions, and grow independently. It is not just liberation from social constraints, but also freedom from the limitations she once set for herself. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Jung said it well. And for a woman living alone, solitude is not a fear, but a privilege to find her truest self. Do you see a part of yourself in that story? Is solitude truly something to fear, or is it an opportunity to find the strength that you never knew existed? Think about the moments when you had to face difficulties alone and make important decisions by yourself. Was that when you realized you were stronger than you thought? Share your thoughts in the comments, and together we will explore more about the inner strength of women on this journey. Number 3. The power of solitude. Not a deficiency, but a wholeness. When we talk about living alone, many people often confuse alone with loneliness. In common perception, being alone is often equated with loneliness, but in reality, these two concepts are entirely different. Alone is a choice, a private space for inner development, to listen to oneself without the distractions of society. Meanwhile, loneliness is the feeling of disconnection, the emptiness of craving a connection with others, but being unable to attain it. Carl Jung once said, "The sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light in the darkness of mere being, and sometimes it is in the silence of being alone that this torch is found." Imagine the image of a woman living alone in her small apartment in the city. Every morning, she wakes up with sunlight filtering through the curtains, spends about an hour making a cup of coffee, reading an unfinished book, and writing in her journal. It is the most peaceful time of her day, undisturbed, with no constant phone calls, no one urging her. She shares that those solitary moments help her listen clearly to her inner voice, to ask herself what she truly wants, how she truly feels. Without having to chase anyone's expectations, she finds comfort and peace in her own space. This is the embodiment of alone, a completeness of the soul, not lacking or empty. Carl Jung explained this through his concept of individuation. According to him, individuation is the process by which a person becomes more whole and aware of their true self, overcoming the images and ideas imposed on them by society. For women, living alone is an opportunity to face the hidden parts of themselves, to understand the aspects that may have been forgotten. A woman living alone is not doing so because she lacks affection. She is choosing to connect with herself first. This is not an act of rejecting the world, but an act of embracing the deep essence within. Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." This is entirely opposed to what society often imposes on women. In traditional society, a woman's value is often judged by whether she is married or has children. But according to Jung, the value of an individual does not come from external social roles, but from deep self-understanding. That is why solitude, instead of being a fear, becomes a doorway for women to discover themselves. In the state of living alone, women do not need to perform for anyone. nor do they need to adjust their emotions or actions to please others. This is the foundation for the process of individuation to unfold strongly. Carl Jung once explained, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you." Here, Jung wanted to emphasize that loneliness only truly exists when a person cannot connect with the deeper meanings within themselves, not from the absence of others. Women who live alone, if they consciously choose alone instead of loneliness, open up a special space for inner development. In that silence, they begin to listen to the inner voices that may have been buried by the noise of family life or social relationships. This is the space for them to face the hidden unconscious parts, the fears, the wounds, and even the dreams they once neglected. Jung calls this the process of confronting the shadow, the hidden part within us that we often deny or avoid. But it is precisely in that solitude that a woman truly has enough space and time to look deep into her own shadow without fear or avoidance. Jung believed that the process of facing the shadow is the most important step toward achieving wholeness. When a woman lives alone, with no one to rely on or reflect her image to her, she is forced to face her truest thoughts and emotions. With no one to blame or justify her actions to, she begins to recognize herself with all her beauty and imperfections. This is not an easy process, but it is the foundation for building psychological maturity. Jung wrote, "To confront a person with his own shadow is to show him his light. That shadow is not something to fear, but an opportunity for women to understand themselves better, to heal, and to grow." When living alone, women also have the opportunity to nurture creativity and explore passions that may have been suppressed before. Jung explained that each individual carries within them powerful creative potentials, but creativity can only be unleashed when one breaks free from societal molds and listens to their inner self. Imagine the image of a woman spending her weekends planting flowers, painting, or learning a new skill without interruption from others. That time allows her to connect with the deepest parts of her soul, nurturing the creativity that Jung called active imagination. This is not a futile act. It is a way for her to find wholeness within herself. When women live alone, they have the space to play with their ideas, with their emotions, and with their plans. Not limited by societal expectations, they are free to express themselves in whatever way they choose. A woman who writes every day, even if just short journal entries, is creating a space for her creativity to flourish. Another woman chooses to learn the piano, even if she has never played music before. It is a way for her to explore her limits and surpass them. Moreover, in the journey of individuation, a woman living alone also has the chance to connect with her animus, the masculine energy within. This is the strong, decisive, and rational side that women are often socially conditioned to suppress. But when living alone, unbound by dependent roles, they naturally develop their animus. Carl Jung explained, "The animus is the deposit, as it were, of all woman's ancestral experiences of man, and not only that, he also is a creative and procreative being, the source of meaning and strength." When connected with the animus, a woman becomes stronger, more self-reliant, and ready to face any challenge without needing anyone's protection. Not everyone who lives alone is lonely, and not everyone with a full family feels happy. The difference lies in whether one can find wholeness within oneself. Carl Jung believed that it is in those quiet spaces that one can connect with their personal unconscious and even the collective unconscious, the reservoir of memories and experiences of humankind. For women, time alone is an opportunity to touch their true emotions without judgment, without imposition. Carl Jung once emphasized, Solitude is for me a fount of healing which makes my life worth living. Talking is often a torment for me, and I need many days of silence to recover from the futility of words. For women like her, Han or Thao, solitude is not sadness. It is the freedom to understand oneself, to self-heal, and to find the true meaning of life. In these spaces, women have the chance to explore their own identity, to connect with the true values they long for. They do not need to depend on anyone to feel whole, nor do they need a man to affirm their worth. Solitude allows them to look back at what they have been through, the wounds that need healing, and the dreams that deserve pursuit. A woman living alone is not lonely. It is a conscious choice to become whole from within. In conclusion, solitude is not a deficiency, but a space for women to recreate themselves, to face the hidden unconscious parts, to develop creativity, and to connect with their inner strength. In the light of Jungian philosophy, living alone is not meaningless loneliness, but a journey into the depths of consciousness, where one not only finds oneself, but also discovers absolute wholeness. Have you ever experienced a time living alone without feeling lonely? Did you find peace, freedom, and completeness in that silence? Share your feelings below, because maybe your experience could inspire other women on their journey to rediscover themselves. Number 4. Transforming feminine archetypes in solitude. Imagine that deep within the subconscious of every woman, ancient archetypes are lying dormant. These are timeless images etched into the collective unconscious of humanity, waiting to be awakened when a woman steps into her journey of freedom. When she chooses to live alone, breaking free from societal constraints, these archetypes begin to rise, powerful and full of authority. Carl Jung called this the awakening of archetypes, the deep psychological symbols within each of us, not only shaping behavior, but also reflecting the truest essence of the soul. One of the most prominent archetypes is the Artemis archetype. Artemis in Greek mythology is the goddess of the hunt, representing freedom, wildness, and independence. Artemis does not need a man to protect her, nor does she need anyone's permission to pursue what she desires. For women who choose to live alone, the Artemis archetype awakens powerfully. They begin to realize that freedom is not something to fear, but an infinite space to explore oneself. No longer bound by social constraints to marry at a certain age, or fulfill the roles of wife and mother, they begin to rediscover passions that were once forgotten. Imagine the image of a 28-year-old woman who decides to live alone after ending a long-term relationship. Before, she always believed she needed to find a good man to build a family, to complete her life. But when she began living independently, she discovered her love for traveling alone, climbing mountains, and experiencing treacherous trails. She shared that standing on the peak of a high mountain, looking down at the vast scenery, she felt an extraordinary sense of freedom, a feeling she had never experienced before. The Artemis archetype within her awakened, stirring courage and independence that she once believed she did not have. She began her journey of inner awakening when she no longer depended on others to feel complete. When asked if she felt lonely, she smiled and replied, "I don't need someone beside me to feel whole. All I need is a book, a cup of morning coffee, and long journeys. That's enough for me." That is when the Artemis archetype within her was awakening strongly. She did not need the protection of a man, nor did she need society to validate her worth through a wedding ring or a perfect family. Carl Jung explained that archetypes are not merely psychological symbols, but images stored in the collective unconscious, existing throughout history and reflecting timeless qualities. The Artemis archetype represents liberation from social structures that bind women to fixed roles. In modern society, women like Anne are living in the spirit of Artemis, strong, free, and entirely in control of their own lives. They do not seek validation from the outside, but build a world of fulfillment through personal experiences. Artemis is also a symbol of protecting oneself and the vulnerable. In mythology, she is not only the goddess of the hunt, but also the protector of young women, guarding their purity and dignity against male domination and societal control. When a woman lives alone, she learns to protect herself, no longer relying on a bodyguard or a protector. Instead of waiting for safety from someone else, she learns to use her inner strength to stand firm against difficulties. It does not stop at Artemis. Solitude also awakens the oracle archetype, the symbol of wisdom, intuition, and the ability to connect with spiritual depths. Carl Jung believed that when people detach from societal noise, they have the opportunity to hear their inner voice most clearly. In this journey, women not only find strength, but also open the door to connect with their deepest intuition. Another woman living alone, aged 36, shared her journey after a divorce. Previously, she always relied on her husband to make big decisions, from buying a house to work-related matters. When she was alone, she began to learn how to listen to her intuition, the voice she once ignored for fear of making mistakes. She started meditating daily, focusing on her breath and listening to what her inner self was telling her. She realized her intuition was far more accurate than she had ever thought. She shared that when she sat alone in silence, decisions that once took her weeks of hesitation now became clear after just a few minutes of stillness. Jung called this the connection to the personal unconscious and the collective unconscious, where wisdom is not only personal, but part of the entire history of humankind. Your visions will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. She found the light of clarity by choosing to listen to herself. Beyond Artemis and the oracle, the wise woman archetype also begins to take shape in solitude. This symbolizes understanding, maturity, and the ability to heal the soul. When not influenced by societal expectations, a woman begins to view life more profoundly. She no longer rushes to meet others' standards, but learns to love and care for herself. An exemplary case is a 55-year-old woman who started living alone after her children grew up and moved out. She began gardening, planting flower beds, and tending to each leaf every morning. She shared that watching the seeds grow day by day taught her more about patience and the cycle of life. She began to keep a journal, recording every emotion and thought daily, feeling like she was healing wounds she had never touched before. Jung once asserted, "The garden is a metaphor for life, and gardening is a symbol of the inner work required to grow as a person." Through the journey of living alone, the feminine archetypes within begin to awaken. It is not weakness or dependency, but strength, wisdom, and profound understanding. Finally, the transformation of these feminine archetypes is not a replacement, but a synthesis and awakening. A woman living alone does not lose her femininity. Instead, she lives more fully with her true essence, with the deepest parts of her soul that were once obscured by societal prejudices and constraints. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And for women, living alone is not just an act of freedom, it is a journey back to the core of the self, awakening powerful and authoritative archetypes that lie dormant within their consciousness. Living alone is not a manifestation of loneliness or an escape from love. It is a powerful and conscious choice for a woman to seek completeness from within herself. Amid societal prejudices about the need to attach and depend on a relationship to become whole, A woman who chooses to live alone is making a bold statement. Her value is not defined by someone else loving her, but by how she loves and understands herself. For women who choose to live alone, they are walking this path, the path of individuation, where they connect with the shadow, awaken their internal masculine energy, animus, and reach the powerful archetypes in their consciousness like Artemis, the oracle, and the wise woman. Every choice of independent living is a step closer to their truest self, unshackled by any pressures or expectations from others. This journey is not only about self-discovery, but also about liberation from the invisible limitations society has imposed on them. A woman living alone does not reject love. She chooses to love herself first, so that when true love does come, it will be the harmony of two complete souls, not the filling of a void born from lack. And on that path, she learns to protect herself, to heal her own wounds, to build her own value without needing validation from anyone. Carl Jung affirmed, "Solitude is for me a fount of healing, which makes my life worth living." For women, living alone is the silent space for healing, for growth, and for rebirth. Therefore, if you are choosing to live alone, do not let prejudice or external pressures hold you back. See it as a sacred journey to become your true self, to connect deeper with the unexplored parts of your soul. Because only when you truly understand and love yourself can you step into any relationship with wholeness and inner freedom. If you feel inspired by these stories of self-discovery and inner strength, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss out on more profound and meaningful content. Let's explore the mind together, unlock the subconscious, and find the truest version of ourselves through the philosophy of Carl Jung. Turn on notifications to be the first to receive these inspiring insights every week. Society often perceives a man who lives alone, without a woman by his side, as a symbol of loneliness and failure in the life mission, building a family, forming social bonds, and contributing to the continuation of future generations. This judgmental gaze is often accompanied by the stereotype that he lacks completeness, as if a man's worth is measured by the presence of others in his life. However, Carl Jung offered a completely different perspective. According to him, solitude is not a failure, nor is it an act of avoidance. On the contrary, it can be a profound inner journey, a spiritual laboratory where a man confronts himself, exploring the deepest layers of the unconscious that the clamor of the external world cannot reach. Solitude, through Jung's lens, is not emptiness, but a sacred space where one connects with the truest part of oneself, facing the shadow and awakening the forgotten feminine aspect, anima, within. Living alone without a woman by one's side for many might seem like a deficiency. But for Jung, it is an opportunity for a man to transcend social constraints, embarking on a journey of soul discovery where stillness becomes the teacher and solitude becomes the mirror reflecting the truest self. So, what truly happens within the soul of a man who chooses to live alone? Is it a harsh loneliness or a quest for inner awakening? Let us together explore the truth hidden beneath this quiet exterior. Number 1. Solitude versus isolation. In modern society, as life becomes more hectic and people seem to be swept up in relationships and social pressures, a man who lives alone is often seen as a symbol of loneliness, failure, or loss of connection with the surrounding world. In reality, the choice to live alone is often misunderstood as an act of social avoidance, a deliberate retreat into isolation. But according to Carl Gustav Jung, living alone can be a profound spiritual journey, bringing inner peace and self-awareness. He did not view solitude as a negative loneliness, but as a powerful process of spiritual transformation. To truly understand this concept, we first need to clearly distinguish between solitude and isolation. Solitude, according to Jung, is not the absence of others, but a voluntary state when a person consciously chooses silence to face themselves. It is a sacred space where the soul is cleansed from external noise to meet its true self. In contrast, isolation is a state of abandonment, a loss of connection when one cannot find empathy, leading to feelings of exclusion and loneliness. The essence lies in the fact that solitude is a choice, while isolation is an imposition from the outside or inner fears. Carl Jung once said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens." Solitude is precisely the journey of looking inward, confronting the dark corners of the soul that we often avoid when caught up in the busyness of society. Conversely, isolation is a descent into indefinite sadness, a state where the soul gradually becomes barren due to the lack of communication and understanding from both within and without. In the process of individuation, Jung emphasized that solitude is an essential stage for a person to confront the shadow, the hidden and rejected aspects of consciousness. When a man enters a state of solitude, he is no longer dominated by societal expectations. He is forced to face repressed emotions, unexpressed anger, and desires that were never acknowledged. Solitude allows him to understand himself and at the same time reconcile with the darker parts that he has long feared and avoided. A typical example of the transformation of solitude in everyday life can be seen in young people after experiencing heartbreak or failure in their careers. Imagine a man who has just gone through a painful breakup after many years of attachment. Before, he was accustomed to the presence of his partner, the daily conversations, and the sharing of every small moment. When the relationship ends, silence engulfs him, and society around him quickly labels him as lonely, failed, and lost. In the beginning, the silence of the empty room seems to swallow up all his thoughts. The quiet evenings bring back memories and repressed sadness. But instead of trying to fill that void with fleeting relationships or meaningless busyness, he chooses to face himself. He begins to write a journal, recording the most honest emotions that he had never dared to confront before. He takes walks every afternoon, sitting under a tree in the park, observing people around him and listening to his breath. Gradually, the silence is no longer frightening. It becomes a companion, helping him understand the deep wounds inside, accept the mistakes of the past, and open the door to see himself most truly. He realizes that previously, many of his emotions were hidden under a mask of fake happiness, of forced smiles when others asked about his life. Only when there was no one around did he have the courage to face the darker parts he once tried to avoid. Solitude becomes a safe space for him to reflect on life, on the things he truly desires. He learns to listen to his soul, recognizes the unfinished dreams, the passions that were once forgotten because of the endless race of society. Without superficial conversations, he begins to dialogue with himself, questioning the purpose of life and the meaning of happiness. Solitude is not isolation. It is a spiritual laboratory where he rebuilds his identity from the fragments of what was broken. However, if solitude is not properly managed, it can easily turn into isolation. When a man is unable to use his time alone to explore his inner self, Silence can quickly transform into a dark void, leading the mind into a sense of emptiness. Those who do not know how to utilize solitude as a tool for self-development easily fall into social isolation, where they feel lost and directionless. Isolation is a mental trap, causing people to reject connection with the world out of fear of being hurt. It is no longer a journey of freedom, but a stagnant state of the soul. Carl Jung also emphasized the role of the anima in the process of individuation, especially when a man lives alone. The anima is the feminine archetype within the male subconscious, symbolizing emotion, sensitivity, and intuition. When a man chooses solitude without a woman by his side, he is forced to connect with his anima to maintain psychological balance. At this point, solitude helps him awaken the forgotten feminine aspect, thereby achieving inner wholeness. Living alone without a woman is not a deprivation, but a process of harmonizing reason and emotion. A man learns to love and respect himself, to discover personal values instead of seeking validation from others. This is opposite to isolation, where the lack of emotional connection easily traps people in a vicious cycle of loneliness and disappointment. Solitude helps people learn to take responsibility for their own emotions instead of blaming circumstances or others around them. It opens up a space for reflection, self-healing, and becoming more complete. Free from societal expectations, a man is liberated to ask questions about the nature of happiness, existence, and life's purpose. Rather than isolating, he becomes his companion. Ultimately, the difference between solitude and isolation lies in one's attitude toward silence. If solitude is the courage to face oneself, then isolation is the retreat from life's challenges. In solitude, a man does not run away but dives deep into his soul, seeking truth and peace. This is the journey of freedom that Carl Jung encouraged, a place where a person not only finds himself, but also realizes his inner strength, enough to stand firm even without anyone by his side. Number 2, confronting the shadow. If solitude is the gateway to the journey of self-awareness, then confronting the shadow is the first challenging step into the inner world. In Carl Jung's philosophy, the shadow is defined as the repressed, hidden parts of the human mind, including fears, anger, unacknowledged desires, and buried traumatic memories. Jung called it the repository of things that society does not accept, of the darker aspects that people try to deny or forget. He once wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." This statement emphasizes a profound truth. The things we dare not face or acknowledge will silently influence our actions and decisions, creating endless cycles of suffering. Solitude is the path for a man to embark on the journey of discovering his own shadow. When the noise of life fades away, when there are no distractions from social relationships or daily responsibilities, a man is forced to confront the emptiness within his soul, an emptiness he once tried to fill with fleeting pleasures or shallow social connections. In the absolute silence, the whispers of the shadow begin to emerge. These could be the fear of abandonment from childhood, suppressed anger after moments of hurt, or a desire for recognition that was never acknowledged. All these emotions, when buried, continue to torment the soul unconsciously, causing the person to fall into restlessness, quick-tempered reactions, or the avoidance of the truth about themselves. Imagine a man living alone after years of drowning himself in unhealthy relationships. Before, he sought connections to fill the emptiness inside him. All-night parties, fleeting romances, like temporary sedatives for hidden pain. But when he chooses solitude, all distractions disappear. He can no longer escape into another's arms, nor find solace in noisy parties to forget his loneliness. Instead, He is left alone with an empty room, with darkness surrounding him, and with unceasing thoughts flooding his mind. Memories once forgotten gradually resurface, and unhealed wounds begin to ache. In the stillness, he hears more clearly than ever the echoes of the past. Mistakes, repressed pain, all pouring into his consciousness like an unending stream. This is the moment when the shadow reveals itself. It is not a dark force coming to destroy, but a hidden part that needs to be acknowledged and integrated into the self. Carl Jung affirmed, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." He is forced to confront the fear of loneliness, the emptiness when no one is around, and the insecurity when there is nothing left to cling to. But this is not destruction. On the contrary, it is the purification of consciousness, an awakening that begins from the very darkness itself. A very real and relatable example is the story of a friend I once knew. After a broken marriage, he decided to live alone in a small apartment on the outskirts. Before, he always tried to mask his loneliness by constantly meeting friends, attending parties, or burying himself in work. But when faced with the silence of that empty room, painful memories began to return. He realized that for many years, he had never truly confronted the feeling of loss after his father's death. The helplessness, fear, and suppressed anger slowly surfaced during sleepless nights. Instead of running away from that feeling, he began to write a journal. Every word was like a fragment of forgotten emotion being rearranged. He learned to accept his mistakes, acknowledge his weaknesses, and find ways to heal himself. Solitude became a safe space for him to reconnect with his shadow, to face and reconcile with the past. The process of confronting the shadow is not easy, and Jung never claimed it to be a gentle journey. It is painful when facing hidden wounds, a feeling of insecurity when every dark aspect of oneself is exposed. But it is also in that confrontation that the purification of consciousness begins. Jung called it the process of individuation, the journey where one transcends the limitations of the ego to reach their true essence. He once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And to do that, one must step into their own darkness, face the breakdowns, the insecurities, and the repressed fears." Solitude is the space to do that. When there are no distractions, one is forced to face the pain, analyze the wounds, and begin the healing process. This is a journey that no one else can undertake for him, because only he can be brave enough to explore the hidden corners that have been forgotten. And when he walks through that darkness, he is no longer someone running from the past, but someone who holds control over his own life. The shadow is no longer an enemy, but becomes a teacher, an inseparable part that helps him grow and become stronger. The journey of confronting the shadow is a challenging inner battle, but it is also the liberation of the soul from the chains of denial. That is why Carl Jung always encouraged people to face their shadow, because only by accepting its existence can we truly step into the journey of authentic freedom. Number 3. Awakening the anima, awakening the feminine within. If the journey of facing the shadow is a confrontation with the repressed and rejected corners of one's inner self, then the next step in the process of individuation is to face the anima, the feminine within a man. Carl Jung described the anima as the symbolic representation of the feminine aspect in every man's unconscious, the gateway to the world of emotion, intuition, and softness. Jung believed that in the unconscious of every man, there exists a feminine archetype deeply hidden, reflecting his experiences with women throughout his life, from mothers and lovers to the women who simply passed by. When living alone, without the presence of women outside to mirror his emotions, the man is forced to confront his own anima. At this point, he can no longer rely on anyone else for empathy or emotional support. He must turn inward to discover and awaken that feminine side on his own. Jung once said, "The meeting with oneself is, at first, the meeting with one's own shadow. The shadow is a tight passage, a narrow door, whose painful constriction no one is spared who goes down to the deep well." But one must learn to know oneself, to know who one is. If the shadow is the door to the inner self, then the anima is the flowing source of emotion, where a man learns to empathize, to love, and to see himself with greater compassion and tenderness. Have you ever experienced moments when, with no one around, all the emotions buried deep inside suddenly rise to the surface? It could be the longing for someone who once meant a lot, the regret for things left unsaid, or a nameless sadness that lingers. Perhaps that is the call of the anima, demanding that you listen. Imagine a man living alone in a small apartment, with no woman present to share his emotions. The long, silent evenings, absent of laughter and deep conversations, force him to confront the suffocating stillness. Yet within that stillness, the truest feelings begin to emerge. He might suddenly find himself missing a woman who once walked through his life, feeling regret for words left unspoken, emotions left unexpressed. With no one around to fill the void, he is forced to face that pain directly, without escape or denial. This is the awakening of the anima. When facing the anima, the man learns to listen to himself, to the repressed emotions and the forgotten pains. He realizes that there were times when he was weak, fears he dared not admit, and memories that remained vivid despite the passing of time. The anima is not just the voice of emotion, but also intuition, the ability to sense things that reason cannot explain. Carl Jung once stated, "Anima is not the soul itself, but a reflection of it. It is the soul's image in the unconscious." This means that when a man connects with his anima, he is connecting with a part of his soul that has been forgotten or denied due to societal expectations that men should not be weak or soft. Have you ever wondered why, sometimes, when looking at a painting or listening to a sad piece of music, you feel like crying, even though you do not understand why? That is the call of the anima, a part of you that needs to be understood and empathized with. When was the last time you allowed yourself to cry for your feelings? Solitude once again becomes the great teacher. When there is no woman's presence to seek comfort or emotional understanding from, the man is forced to hold his pain, to empathize with himself. That is when he learns to be gentle with his wounds, to love himself without needing validation from anyone else. Those moments sitting alone in silence, sipping morning tea, watching the sunlight stream through the window, he begins to see the beauty in stillness, the peace that comes from within. The anima awakens, and he becomes softer, more empathetic, yet not weaker. On the contrary, he grows stronger by learning to confront and accept emotions, instead of running away from them. A relatable example is the image of single fathers. When there is no woman around to share the responsibilities of raising children, they must learn to understand their child's emotions, to listen and comfort their sorrows. Men who were once accustomed to being tough and strong now realize that to be a good father, they need to connect more with their inner femininity, empathy, gentleness, and patience. This is not a weakening, but a psychological maturation, a significant step in the individuation process that Carl Jung spoke of. Awakening the anima is like opening a door to a new, vibrant, and colorful inner world. The man gradually realizes that strength is not only in toughness and logic, but also in the ability to love, to empathize, and to understand himself. Carl Jung once wrote, The anima is the archetype of life itself. When a man awakens this feminine aspect, he not only understands himself more deeply, but also connects more profoundly with the world around him. He begins to view life with more empathy, a more open heart. He can feel the pain of others, understand the fragility of emotions, and from that, learn to love more genuinely, no longer confined by the rigidity of logic. In solitude, with no one to lean on, no one to blame or seek comfort from, the man is forced to befriend his emotions, to heal, and to love himself. This is the awakening of the anima, the integration of reason and emotion, strength and softness. He becomes a more balanced, stronger, and more authentic version of himself. And this is the spiritual transformation that Carl Jung described. A long and difficult journey, but one filled with meaning, as the man learns to love himself, and from that, love life more sincerely. Have you ever experienced such awakening moments, when you do not need anyone else to make you happy, do not need anyone else to feel complete, but only need yourself? If not, are you ready to begin that journey right now? Number 4. The alchemical transformation, spiritual transformation. When a man has confronted the shadow and awakened the anima, the inner feminine, a new door opens. This is the journey of spiritual transformation, also known as the alchemical transformation. Carl Jung compared this transformation to the work of ancient alchemists who dedicated their lives to turning lead into gold. However, the gold here is not the precious metal, but a symbol of enlightenment, maturity, and wholeness of the soul. Jung called this the individuation process, the process of self-realization, where one breaks free from the shell of prejudices, wounds, and the constraints of the ego to touch the truest essence of the self. He once said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Solitude, with all its silence and relentless confrontation, is the forge, the spiritual laboratory where a man purifies his mind, overcomes his wounds, and grows stronger. This process is not merely silence or contemplation. It requires discipline and a commitment to oneself. The alchemists of old spent decades refining lead, condensing the rawest materials into pure essence. Similarly, a man in solitude must face the wounds of the past, deep-seated fears, and even the limitations that society has imposed upon him. That is when he begins the journey of inner transformation, turning pain into understanding, failure into experience, and loneliness into spiritual strength. This process does not happen in the blink of an eye. It demands patience, courage, and especially absolute honesty with oneself. There is no one left to blame, no one left to seek salvation from. He is forced to walk through the darkness alone, to find the light within his soul. During that journey, the most powerful tools do not come from the outside, but are the habits and practices rooted in introspection. Journaling, meditation, and artistic creation are the 3 golden keys that help him unlock his consciousness, connect more deeply with his essence, and release buried potential. Imagine a man waking up every morning, sitting by the window with a cup of coffee and opening his journal. He writes not to show off or prove anything, but simply to listen to himself. The words flow across the white pages like a stream, washing away the burdens of his soul. Every stroke of the pen is a heartbeat of truth, a contemplation, a confession he has never dared to share with anyone. Carl Jung once affirmed, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And writing is a way for him to confront the masks, peeling them away layer by layer until he finally sees his true reflection. Besides journaling, meditation is a powerful tool that helps him connect with the depths of his consciousness. When the world around becomes too noisy and chaotic, Meditation is like a gateway that brings him back to the primordial stillness within. In the moments of closing his eyes and focusing on his breath, all thoughts begin to fade, all worries blur away, leaving only the pure existence of himself. That is the moment he connects with himself, feeling every flow of emotion, listening to every sound of his heart. Not only limited to contemplation and listening, artistic creation also becomes a powerful form of healing. Many people find solace and rejuvenation through painting, writing, or music. Creation becomes the language to express what words cannot. It is the way for a man to unburden his soul, to transform pain into beauty. A man once shared that after going through a major life event, he turned to painting as a form of spiritual therapy. Every stroke was a part of his memory being released. Every color was an emotion long imprisoned that was finally set free. He did not paint to display or to sell. He painted to dialogue with himself, to heal the wounds that had been buried for so long. Have you ever experienced the feeling of sitting alone, picking up a pen, and writing down all the chaotic emotions inside, or simply closing your eyes, focusing on your breath, and letting all thoughts drift away? Those are the moments of rebirth, of spiritual transformation. If you have never experienced it, why not try starting right now? When the transformation is complete, the man steps out of the silence of solitude with a renewed self. He is no longer someone running away, no longer lost in the flow of life, but a strong, awakened individual who understands his value. Carl Jung once described this change as a rebirth. There is no coming to consciousness without pain. Solitude is no longer loneliness, but becomes a companion, helping him connect with the deepest truths within. Number 5. Solitude as a path to individuation. The journey of individuation. When a man has gone through the journey of spiritual transformation, where suffering, prejudices, and wounds are purified and transformed into enlightenment and inner strength, he begins to step into the final stage of the journey, individuation. This is the ultimate destination in the path of inner awakening that Carl Jung described, a state in which a man fully connects with his true self, no longer governed by social prejudices or external expectations. Jung once wrote, "Individuation means becoming a single, homogeneous being, and insofar as individuality embraces our innermost, last, and incomparable uniqueness, it also implies becoming one's self." We could therefore translate individuation as coming to selfhood or self-realization. On this journey, solitude is no longer isolation or escape, but becomes the space where a man touches the deepest layers of his true self, discovering the core values that were once obscured by society. The noise from the outside world, the expectations of success, and the pressure to become an ideal model gradually fade away. In absolute silence, he listens to the voice from deep within, a calling untainted by prejudice or judgment. This is the process of redefining self-worth, no longer needing validation from others, no longer needing to prove anything to be recognized. Jung described this process as a journey back to oneself, where a man finds the purest essence of his soul. Have you ever experienced that feeling? When all the voices around you seem to lose their weight, when you no longer care what others think of you, and there is only you, with inner peace from within? Individuation is not an easy journey. Breaking free from societal prejudices and expectations demands great courage. From birth, people are burdened with invisible expectations to be successful, to be strong, to shoulder the responsibilities of a man as defined by social standards. These pressures force many men to wear layers of masks, living inauthentically to meet standards that they do not understand why they must follow. Carl Jung once said, The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parents. This also holds for grown men as they continue to carry the unfulfilled dreams and unmet expectations of previous generations. In solitude, he begins to remove the layers of armor he wore to please society, to meet the expectations of others. He faces the truth that for many years he has not lived his own life, but the life programmed by family, society, and prejudice. This silence helps him realize that true value does not lie in what others see, but in the peace and contentment of living in alignment with his true self. This is when he truly steps into the process of individuation. Are you living according to what others expect? Are you pursuing goals that are not yours, just because society says that is the right thing to do? If the answer is yes, then perhaps it is time for you to face yourself, to rediscover your true self. When the process of individuation is complete, the man returns to life no longer as a shadow controlled by social prejudices, but as a whole, independent and strong individual. He no longer needs praise or societal recognition to feel valuable. His confidence and peace come from within, unshaken by others' evaluations. He understands who he is, where his values lie, and what truly brings him happiness. Carl Jung affirmed, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." A simple example easily found in life is the image of men after going through major events such as divorce, losing a job, or moving to a new place. At first, the collapse makes them confused, lost, and feel as if they have lost their value. But when they choose solitude to reflect and face themselves, they gradually realize that all those failures do not define them. They begin to live for themselves, discover forgotten passions, and build a life in the way they want, not the way others expect. When a man completes the process of individuation, he becomes an individual who is no longer dependent on the gaze of others. This freedom does not come from how much wealth or social status he has, but from understanding himself. He no longer needs to prove anything to anyone, nor does he need to chase after others' standards. His life becomes simpler, yet deeper. Not glamorous, but peaceful. This is the absolute freedom that Carl Jung aimed for. When a man understands his true self, he is no longer a slave to social expectations, but the master of his own life. Would you like to become such a man? A man who lives authentically, free in his choices, and not bound by the opinions of others? If yes, then the journey of individuation is waiting for you to explore. Carl Jung once said, "He who looks outside dreams, he who looks inside awakens." Solitude through Jung's lens is not an escape from reality or a sign of failure, but a profound journey into the inner world where a man confronts himself, exploring the deepest layers of his soul. It is when he touches the shadow, facing the repressed and hidden aspects. It is when he awakens the anima, connecting with the gentle femininity and intuition that have been forgotten. And it is when he undergoes the process of alchemical transformation, turning all suffering into spiritual strength. A man who lives alone, without the presence of a woman by his side, is not a failure by society's standards, but rather someone brave enough to embark on a journey of self-discovery. He does not fill the emptiness with fleeting relationships or meaningless busyness, but instead chooses to confront the silence, the inner darkness, to find the light from within. In the stillness of solitude, he rediscovers his true self, transcending stereotypes and expectations to become a more complete and powerful version of himself. Solitude is not isolation. It is a calling of the soul, a gateway that leads a man toward awakening and inner wholeness. Once he has crossed that journey, he no longer needs validation from others, nor is he bound by society's judgments or expectations. The peace and resilience that arise from within Enable him to stand strong against the storms of life. That man not only lives, but truly exists, strong, free, and authentic with himself. If these questions make you start to think, then perhaps you are ready for an even deeper journey. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss these deeply insightful journeys of mind-opening exploration. Together, we will uncover more profound mysteries of the soul and find the truest path to awakening.